Yes. Okay.
Okay.
My name is Cheryl Castillo, and my guest is Leanne Gray, co-owner with her husband of J.L. Gray Rock Shop, located in Marbleton, Wyoming. Thank you for your time today, Miss Gray. May I videotape you and record the interview today for the use of my natural resource class, where others will watch the documentary that I am creating?
Yes, that will be fine. Thank you.
Are you ready to start?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My first question is, how long have you been collecting rocks?
Oh my. Most of our lives, my husband and I. So that's 50 plus years. Really, all over the country.
Cool. Where do you get the rocks?
Well, we get some off of private land. My husband was raised in northeast Wyoming, so a lot of private ranch land over there, and his family moved then to Casper and Riverton, so opportunities all through that time in farming and ranch land to collect rocks, so that was fun. And then BLM land, Forest Service land if you can see the ground for the trees. And over the years we've had the opportunity to buy several collections from older gentlemen who have collected all over the country. So it's quite exciting. It has given us a diverse number of rocks.
That's interesting. What tools or equipment do you need to collect rocks?
Well, first a shovel is always handy. And sometimes a rake can be useful if you're kind of sifting through where the ground is very loose and lots of small rocks. Gunny sack or a bag or a bucket or a box to carry it in, a backpack. We have rock hammers that are pointed on one end and flat on the other, so you can beat a rock apart or pop it if it's stuck in the dirt or stuck in between two other rocks, you can pop it loose.
That's pretty cool. What made you decide to work with rock?
You know, it has become an obsession. You collect all of these beautiful rocks, and then pretty soon, first step usually is tumbling them, thinking, oh, we'll tumble them and that won't be pretty, and they are, and then you think, well, what am I going to do with this? So you start crafting, and then pretty soon you're making jewelry. So it just really is a progression, or has been for us and many we know, of, gosh, we really enjoy this, but eventually you've got to make a decision what you're going to do with them. Rock garden, we've gone down the path of home decoration and jewelry items, some specimen collection, but for the most part we turn our rocks into usable objects.
That is pretty awesome.
Yes.
When did you begin making things with rocks?
Well, it was in the early 90s. Kind of dropped into an opportunity to buy a saw, so then you start to cut all these pretty rocks you've collected. Of course, had a tumbler. And then by 1993, we did our very first public craft show to sell some of the things we had made, because you run out of family and friends to give them to. So you think, well, do I want to stop making things? Not really. So we'll try selling them and see if other people like them as well as we do. And it's been very successful. We've done shows then and ultimately had a rock shop in an evolution since 1993.
That's pretty awesome. What are the costs of collecting and processing the rocks?
Well, your collection costs typically aren't very high. You do have travel. So collecting locally, it's pretty cheap. You have fuel to get there. And if you go further away, then you might have overnight costs or, more travel. Shipping costs if you flew someplace and ended up with rocks you couldn't carry home on the plane. The processing of rocks becomes much more expensive because, like I mentioned, a saw to cut them turns into more than one saw. Multiple sizes of saws are useful because they perform different functions, really. So the costs are in the equipment, the supplies to keep that equipment running, oil to lubricate the blades, replacement blades when you wear one out or break it. We have grinding equipment and polishing equipment that uses diamond wheels. The tumblers take grit and polish. So there are a number of costs involved. For us, we've spread those costs over a lot of years, so our startup cost doesn't seem so much when you look at it today, but if we added it up over all the years, it would probably kind of even stagger us.
Yeah. What are the benefits of collecting and processing rock?
Oh gosh, the first benefit that comes to our mind, I believe, is just the sheer enjoyment of being outside, collecting rocks, enjoying the opportunity to share our hobby with others, family, friends. I think, too, we're preserving a piece of the geologic history, whether it's of our area or any area from which we collect those natural resources. I think the preservation is very important. we've seen over the years in the United States as well as in other countries of the world, there's a small deposit of something that has been found, and once that deposit has been excavated, there isn't any more that moment. Now, it's quite possible down the road another deposit of a similar rock will be found. But if we don't preserve that, you can see here, especially the weathering in the seasons, the rocks crumble, the sand and the wind wear them away. Pretty soon, there's not much to collect if it's anywhere near the surface. It's pretty much deteriorated. So by collecting it and cutting and polishing or preserving specimens, you, your children, your grandchildren and great-grandchildren will still be enjoying those rocks long after what's available on the surface has gone away.
What is the hardest rock to collect?
Oh my. There's an area called the Blue Forest south of here that's very hard collection. You have to dig for that rock, and the ground, of course, in this area is pretty dry. So it involves a pry bar and a shovel. Some areas are hard to collect. The club in Casper tells us about going out each year to collect lysite agate, and it's down a hill in a ravine. So you pick up these chunks of rock, and then you have to get them up the hill, and they've built this kind of temporary pulley system to help drag them up. I think it's on a board or something, to drag them up the hill, because you really can't walk up this hill and carry these rocks. And they're, you know, probably easily the size of a basketball or two. So they're good sized rocks. So that would be a difficult one to collect as well. Mm-hmm. But those are the two that come to mind. Most of the rock we collect are pretty close to the, like on the surface or in a stream bed. So the access to them is much simpler.
What is the hardest rock to work?
Oh, I believe my husband would say agates. He does the majority of the cutting and polishing. And the agates are hard on the hardness scale. It's very difficult to get them polished without having scratches stuck in them that then you have to go back and kind of start over and re-grind so that the scratches are out. You really have to pay attention. I think in my limited experience personally, obsidian is very tough for the same reason. It scratches easily for the surface is glassy and hard, and the scratches show up. So I think obsidian is probably a good close second.
What is your favorite part of the process from extraction to the finished product?
I believe it's the cutting and the polishing. You take this rock, you have some idea of what it's probably going to look like in most cases. Sometimes you just pick up something that looks interesting or out of the ordinary in an area, and you take it home to cut it to see what really it looks like. And oftentimes you're quite surprised what is inside and how it polishes. But the cutting and the polishing is probably the favorite part. It's the most exciting because each rock has its own personality, its own character. No two slabs are exactly the same when you're cutting a rock.
That would be interesting. What are your best-selling items in the shop?
Our tumbled rocks are the greatest seller, I think. They don't make the most money, but they certainly in volume sell the most. I think because they're affordable and they're pretty and they fit in your pocket, or you could make something out of them. I think next to that would be the cabochons that we cut and polish for jewelry. Because then people can make their own, or they'll have my husband make a finished product out of a stone they select that he's cut and polished.
How many people work here in your shop?
Well, it is my husband and I full-time, and then we have two ladies who help us episodically to man the shop so that it's open when we're out of town or away. And they actually are more of a volunteer and work work because they really enjoy it. So 4 of us pretty much cover it. Our daughter helps because she lives nearby, and if we have someone come when we're gone or after hours and we're not available, she's handy to open the shop and familiar with the rocks, having helped us many times over the years.
Good thing for family.
Yes.
Do you make a living from the shop?
It is a supplemental income. It basically supports itself, the utilities and the cost to operate. And it adds a supplement to our income. I believe with a few more tweaks, we could make it more of an active part of our total income.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
What are your future goals related to the rocks?
Well, there's always things you want. I think we'd like a sphere machine and a rock lathe if we could, win the lottery. And my husband really enjoys sharing what he has learned with others. So he's talked about doing more classes in how to cut and polish rock. And then we'd like to pursue maybe more silversmithing and also learn how to cast in gold and silver so that the finished types of jewelry we can produce would be more diverse.